Good morning, everyone. I am coming super early to you today. I normally come in about an hour's time on Fridays for burning questions, but I am coming today a little bit earlier because I've got a meeting later I've got to rush out to. But I'm back for another live where I answer your burning questions, and we got a ton of questions this week. So I'm going to jump right in so that I can answer as many as possible and not take too much of your time. And just remember, if I don't get to your question, I'll save it and answer it next time. So the first question was from Nicole, and this was actually asked last time, but we ran out of time, so I saved it for today. Nicole said this. First, we are curious if we can work with you instead of a member of your team should we sign up for the program. Second, I'm having a hard time getting my daughter to take supplements. Lastly, we are struggling finding balance with food. We do not want her to develop a food complex, but getting her buy-in has been difficult, if not impossible. These are such great questions, Nicole. So for your first question, yes, we do provide a variety of options with our programs, and one of them is working directly with me. I believe you have chatted with us before, so if you have any questions about how this works, just reach out and let me know, and we can help sort you out on this one. Your second question was about getting your daughter to take supplements. Now, with supplements, I always like to remind parents to focus on food first. You've probably heard me talk about it a lot. If you haven't already started removing those inflammatory foods, no supplement is going to be able to, get you to where you want to go. So first of all, I would definitely make sure you have started with food. And by the sounds of your post, it sounds like you are. Now, supplementation is usually tailored to each individual in order to address sort of specific opportunities, provide support, and look at what's going inside that person's body. Now, I always strongly recommend before considering supplementation that you address diet first and then also specific functional lab testing to identify underlying malfunctions and stresses. So, now to your specific supplement question, it can be tricky to get a child to take their supplements. Can your daughter swallow capsules? I'm assuming she isn't able to yet since you have been trying to mix them in. One suggestion I would make is to start working on swallowing capsules, as that is really, really helpful, and it's a helpful skill that any kid or even adult to have. So I'm going to give you some tips that other parents in our program have used to help their kids learn to swallow pills. And you would be surprised. We have even had 4-year-olds learn how to swallow pills. So don't think that your daughter can't do it. One tip is to use a straw. And so you put the supplement in the mouth and use a straw to draw in the water, and a lot of the time it goes down. You can put the capsule into a big spoonful of dairy-free yogurt or applesauce and then take a big gulp. Another one is if the pill is large, you can cut it in half and try that. Cook spaghetti, obviously gluten-free spaghetti that is, and have your child practice by swallowing very small pieces of that. That's another one. Have your child stand on a chair. I know these sound crazy, but they really do work. And put the pill into their mouth. Have them take a big mouthful of water. Instruct them to jump off the furniture and swallow at the same time. Now that one sounds absolutely wacko, but you would be very surprised how much it works. So I would definitely suggest you start working with your child on learning to swallow capsules. But in the meantime, you might try mixing the supplements into smoothies. But I will say, don't mix it into the whole smoothie, because if they don't drink the smoothie, they're not going to get the full benefit of the supplement. So I always start with a little sort of shot glass of smoothie and mix it in there. You can mix it into overnight oats, dairy-free yogurt, chia puddings. Try not to let her see you adding it in there. You can mix it in some honey with the smoothie and add some extra fruit to mask the taste. And you can add mixed berries or crushed nuts like cashews to the yogurt or overnight oats, and this can really help hide that taste too. Peanut butter is great as well, or any other nut butter, sometimes work to mask the taste. Now, one other thing you might want to try is having a cup of water there to gulp down immediately after she takes the supplement. I normally don't suggest juice, but that's another option, to have that in a small Dixie cup for her to drink right after she takes the supplements. So hopefully some of those strategies that I've just shared with you will help. Now, finally, you asked about how to get her buy-in. One thing that we have seen many times is that as the kid starts to feel better, they are more likely to comply with the dietary changes and supplements. So you want to start talking with her about how her body feels. Help her recognize the improvements that are happening in her body. When she's had a rough day, maybe after she eats something that she shouldn't, help her see that too. So she begins to understand why your family is making these changes. Many of the kids in our program, once they understand how much food affects them, will stick to the diet most of the time because they know what it's like when they're not eating right and they don't want to feel like that again. And also, just a little bit of insight or a little bit of a secret that we haven't mentioned yet, we are actually developing a course as we speak for the kiddos to take. And this will help them understand why they're doing it. And when they hear it from someone else other than their parents, they actually get a lot more buy-in. So stay tuned and we'll let you know when that's done. So hopefully that answers your question. Let me know if you've got any follow-ups. So our next question was from last time as well. It was from Kathleen. She asked, can salt be a factor in increasing ADHD in young children? That's a really great question, Kathleen. It is very important that our top 4 minerals are balanced. Those 4 minerals are potassium, magnesium, sodium, aka salt, and calcium. And if they are not in balance, then we need to adjust them to get them into balance. The way we figure out if they are in balance is using something called an HTMA test. It's a hair tissue mineral analysis, or HTMA for short, and it's a non-invasive, really cost-effective test that provides comprehensive information about these key minerals and about toxic elements as well, like mercury, arsenic, lead, cadmium, aluminium, or as you guys would say, aluminum. I've really got to get used to saying that. So a properly interpreted hair mineral analysis can really find these unique imbalances that can be the underlying root cause for many major health issues. Now, honestly, table salt is not good for anyone. Regular salt is typically mined from underground salt deposits. It is more heavily processed to eliminate minerals and usually contains an additive to prevent it clumping. Celtic sea salt is definitely my preferred option. It generally contains less iodine and has trace minerals and elements, which are an awesome added benefit. So I'm going to pop a link into the comments to the one that I use at home and with my clients who need to increase sodium levels. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Just keeping my eye on if there are any comments. If you've got any questions, shout out. Our next question is from Shamya. Shamya asked where to buy quality supplements. She also wanted to know how to transition a child from foods they like to healthier options. And are supplements necessary? So there's a couple of questions in there. I like to order all of my supplements from a company called FullScript. I trust the quality of their products and I know they have been stored correctly. Now, FullScript is basically an online drugstore for supplements only, okay? They're stored correctly, they're not near their use-by dates, and they're the real version. And that's why I don't generally like to order off Amazon, because we don't know if they're real, if they're stored correctly, or if they're near their use-by date. Now, if you go to my website, you can click a link to log into FullScript or set up a login, and it will take you to my FullScript page where I also include my favorite supplements and brands. So I'll drop the direct link in the comments after this video. Now, as far as transitioning a child from foods they like to eat to healthier options, I like to use a method called food chaining. Now, food chaining is a technique I commonly use for families in my program. You learn the secret to change the shape, change the seasoning, change the cooking method, change the way your child tries the same food in different ways. So for example, a potato can be prepared a million different ways. Don't change the food that they enjoy. Change the way that you serve it. Change the texture and the seasoning. You can include herbs and spices. You just want to keep introducing it. Change up the seasoning, the shape, the preparation. So you can deep fry, pan fry, make into mash, potato mash, add spices combined with sweet potato mash to give it a bit of a different flavor. It's all about changing things really slowly and carefully, starting from a base that your child already enjoys. But did you know that it takes a child sometimes 15 to 20 times trying a new food before they may learn to like it. So don't give up. But also remember, you supply the chain. So if you don't buy the unhealthy stuff, they're not going to be able to eat it. Now, as far as supplements, I always suggest to work on diet first, as you've heard me say before, and but they can be very beneficial. Now, I do share a number of posts and videos where supplementation, where I talk about my top 4 supplements. So we'll pop the link to that video after this video. So hopefully that helps. Now, the next question is from Tiffany. She asked, how do you know the difference between ADHD and anxiety? Tiffany, that's a really, really great question, because ADHD and anxiety really can look very similar as far as symptoms go. It is also possible for some children to have both ADHD and anxiety, which makes it even more challenging for parents. Now, the difference between the two ultimately comes down to what's at the root of the symptoms. If you have anxiety, you may be unable to concentrate in situations that cause you to feel anxious. On the other hand, if you've got ADHD, you'll find it difficult to concentrate most of the time in any type of situation unless you're hyper focusing on something that you love. So you want to consider whether or not your child is not focused because of being fearful or having apprehensive thoughts, or is not focused because of being easily distracted, even though their mind is calm. And a thorough clinical history is important in helping differentiate between the two. In cases like this, if parents really want to have an accurate diagnosis, I always recommend speaking with your pediatrician or pediatric psychiatrist to be evaluated. Hopefully that just gives you a little bit of a tip there. Now, our next question is from Carol, and she says, my 5-year-old will not sleep. What can I do to calm her brain at night? When doing homework, she's already tired and frustrated from all the work she does at school. How do I help her at home with her homework? So seriously, you guys, you've always got the best questions and you always keep me challenged. So I love it. So keep them coming. Now, sleep is a very common problem among children with ADHD. Sleep problems, they're complex and can be caused by a variety of factors. What I typically suggest when there is a situation like this is to try to get to the underlying stresses. What is actually going on in the body that is causing these issues? Certain tendencies among kids with ADHD can keep them from getting a good night's sleep. They can have trouble with self-regulation, and that can keep them from shifting from that active mode to wind down mode at the end of the day. Kids with ADHD are more prone to nightmares, bedwetting, and sleep disorders such as restless leg syndrome and sleep apnea. Kids with ADHD tend to put off doing homework or other tasks until last minute, and that can create sort of a later, more hectic evening in your home. Tweens and teens with ADHD may report feeling more productive during quiet nighttime hours, and they can easily fall into the habit of staying up too late too often. And also, many kids with ADHD also have anxiety problems, as I was talking about earlier. Their anxious feelings can emerge at night when there are fewer distractions around them, and this causes them to have trouble falling or staying asleep. Now, in my experience, when we get to rid the inflammation inside the body and the brain and the gut by changing the food we eat, replacing those inflammatory foods with whole, nutrient-dense foods, sleep does drastically improve, and we see it all the time. So if you have not begun making those dietary changes, that would be where I would recommend you begin. Now, as far as what these underlying stresses could be, I'm wondering if it could be parasites. And I know that sounds a bit gross, but they tend to wake up at nighttime and move around and cause kids to be restless and not be able to sleep. Or there could be another physical reason for this issue, like an earache or a stuffy nose or sleep apnea, or it could be fear, anxiety, stress, or nightmares. Now, another idea would be to work on a bedtime routine. A general rule is giving at least an hour to the bedtime routine. Remove all screens and any other stressors an hour before bedtime. Have your child take a nice, long, distressing bath. Add in some magnesium salts or Epsom salts to really get the benefit of that relaxation and the detox. Have them some alone wind down time in their room, as this can be really critical to processing thoughts and concerns from the day. So for me and my kids, they love to do big adult coloring in books or those massive dot to dots. You can collect supplies like a glass of water, socks, a banana, all those things that are usually needed as soon as the lights go out. Then once they've done that, you can have read time, lights out, cuddles, a chat time to debrief on the day. And you might also consider a meditation app or quiet music or a white noise machine. My kids have one of those Alexas in their room, or Echo Dot, and they play audiobooks when they go to sleep at nighttime. Once you remove stresses, introduce an anti-inflammatory diet and have a quality routine established. The critical thing is to stick with it. You have to be consistent with this routine or otherwise it won't work. I hope that helps, and let me know if you've got any more questions. You also mentioned difficulties with homework. I'm going to pop a link into the comments after this for a video I did about this, so look out for that after the live's over. I just see Marie. Hi, Mariana. Thanks for tuning in. My son wakes up every night between 1 and 3 a.m. and comes to my room. So, Mariana, hopefully that comment that I just, that those tips that I was just suggesting will help. But what happens is also, it does become a learned habit that you have to break. So we can delve deeper into it. If you want to send me a PM, feel free and we can discuss it further. Now, our next question actually came from several different people. So a big thank you to Linu, Ligia, and Shanitha. So they are all wondering about natural methods and supplements to help their child with ADHD, specifically executive function skills, focus, getting things done, and being more independent. And this is probably one of the most common questions I get asked. Now, with supplements, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, I always like to remind parents to focus on food first. If you haven't already started removing these inflammatory foods like gluten, dairy, and soy, no supplement, I'm going to tell you now, I don't want you to waste your money. No supplement is going to be able to get you to where you want to go. So first of all, I would definitely make sure you have started with food and getting those healthier foods into your child's body. I probably have spent enough money to send both of my boys to college with the amount of money I spent on random supplements that I read was going to work to help with ADHD. Not until I changed the diet and started reducing inflammation in the body did they actually start to work. So I'm giving you this tip: save yourself the money, start with food first, and then you can look into supplements. Now, after you've done that, many parents do find supplements helpful, but you do need to keep in mind that every child is so different. What helps one child might not help another child. I typically recommend that if parents have already changed the diet and are wanting to add supplements, that they do functional lab testing first to identify deficiencies and help us know which supplements are most needed. Now, I'm going to pop a couple of links in the comments for you guys. The first one is a video I did that explains the 4 most helpful supplements for ADHD. These supplements are ones that many parents find very helpful. I'm also going to pop a link to a video I did about functional lab testing for any of you out there who might be curious about this. Now, functional lab testing is what I do for families who want to start using targeted supplementation and really get to the root cause of what's going on in this body. So these results show us deficiencies, they show us if there's leaky gut, they show us as if there's parasites, and so we know exactly what each child needs as far as supplements go. So look for both of those links in the comments after I finish up. So hopefully that helps you. Okay, our next question is from Marisol. She wanted to know how to help her child with behaviors at school. So this is such a great question because our kids with ADHD, they often struggle with behavior at school. That's because most schools, they're just not designed for ADHD kiddos in mind. But there are things we can do to help. I actually went live a few weeks ago and talked about some strategies for dealing with difficult behavior at school when everyone was returning to school. So I'm going to pop that link into the comments for you to watch after this Q&A is over. So make sure and check that out. I'm also going to pop a link to a couple of really good articles in Attitude Magazine that were full of suggestions on things to do to help with school behavior. So look out for those as well. So hopefully those videos and resources will give you some really good tips and tricks to get started. Okay. Guys, so many questions today. I think I'll leave this one as my last one. I don't want to take up too much of your time this morning. Our next question was from Amy, and she asked, how can I recognize my daughter's ADHD symptoms if I possibly have it as well and can't recognize my own symptoms? How can I help my child if I can't help myself? Amy, first of all, I am so sorry your family is struggling. It does definitely add some extra challenges when a parent or parents also have ADHD. And it's pretty common occurrence too, because there is definitely a genetic component to ADHD, meaning that if a parent has ADHD, there is a greater likelihood that a child will have it as well. So the first thing I would suggest, if you haven't already, as I've said before, remove inflammatory foods from your entire family. The three most common inflammatory foods are gluten, dairy, and soy. So I always recommend families begin by completely removing these three foods. So many parents join our program hoping to help their children and end up changing their own lives as well. It is amazing to watch. Inflammatory foods can have a huge impact on focus, on hyperactivity, brain fog, and other common ADHD symptoms. So one way that parents with ADHD can both help their children and themselves at the same time is by improving diet. Okay, so trying to recognize whether or not she's got ADHD, if you don't know if you've got ADHD, at the end of the day, whether or not there's an official diagnosis or not, it doesn't matter. Okay, you're struggling, she's probably struggling, and you want to improve that. You've got symptoms and she's got symptoms that align with ADHD. So whether or not there's a diagnosis or not, it doesn't matter at the end of the day unless you want accommodations at school or medication. So my suggestion would be to start with food first. Another thing I want to throw out is that you might consider talking with your doctor, especially if your symptoms are significantly affecting your daily life. So start by changing the diet and see if that starts to improve for a few months. You do want to stick with it for several months before giving up though, because sometimes it can take 3 to even 6 months for gluten to get completely out of the body. So guys, I am going to leave it there. There were a number of other questions, but I think that I've taken up enough of your time today, and I will get to those other questions next time that I do one of these big burning questions. So as always, if you have any more questions or want to chat directly with me or my team about how we can help you, the best way we can do that is to jump on a free call with you. So I'm going to pop a link to that as well. But guys, keep these questions coming. You guys are awesome, and hopefully they're beneficial in me answering them. If you want me to change direction and do something else that would be helpful, let me know as well. I'm definitely open to that feedback. So guys, have a great weekend. That's it for now, and I'll talk to you all soon. Take care.